this four-bedroom.
It's a famous, all this is Valley Forge Park here. I guess we passed the archway of Montgomery County, and he had a business opportunity given to him in Pottstown. And I was born in Pottstown. Your mother happened to be born in Pottstown. And Pottstown existed because of the Schuylkill River. It's a manufacturing town.
So all the people came here to be part of the mills.
Well, that's where the jobs were.
Pottstown started that way
That's where
originally.
the jobs were, you're right.
Even though, do you know anybody in your distant family that was part of the mills?
No. But as you will see eventually, where my father's shop was, I think the building is still there. Right across the street was a big manufacturing plant where your mother and her father used to work. That's empty. The chapel for the faith, the religious faith of United Church of Christ, which is the sponsor for Ursinus College. Zachariah Ursinus was the originator in the 1850s of this college. And one of my parents' close friends, Dr. Donald Baker, who was a Quaker baker, actually taught the Romance history here. This is Ursinus College in Collegeville, Pennsylvania. And this has been a liberal arts college of high comparison with other colleges. It is regarded as one of the top 10 liberal arts colleges in the United States today because of the high quality of education and the achievements of the students that have gone on to professional careers.
When did you join the college?
I came here in 1949 and I graduated in February 1954. A semester delayed because the rest of my class graduated in June of 1953, and because I was working part-time, I had to delay some of my subjects. So that as a result, I was the only one of the class of 54, the class of 53 that graduated February 54. And of course I knew many people from the class of 54 also, but they didn't graduate till June, and I was inducted into the Army by that time. I was very fortunate because of my education at the school before I came to Ursinus, and because of what I accomplished here, that the Army, somebody in the Army chose me to serve in the Army Intelligence Corps. It was a very lucky break, and I got sent to a very unique assignment in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Can you explain a little bit what those buildings are?
Okay, the Baumberger Hall is directly behind us, which is where the chapel, and the Failure Hall is on the west side of campus, is where the science classes and the chemistry labs are. Physics taught over there. The president's residence is the white building directly over here. Dormitories, and we see from this side the Berman Art Museum over here. I don't know if you're interested in seeing the inside of that. You make the call. All of the other buildings in the back are new from the time that I went here. None of that existed. The houses on the other side of Main Street, which is Ridge Pike, were all residence for mostly female students, because in 1949, 1950, they didn't have enough space for everybody, so they rented out homes over there. And the church itself, the United Church of Christ, that sponsors this college is that building over there. Yeah, it's a very pretty building. Because I was a day student and did not live on campus, my friend and fraternity brother, Orby Swavely, and I used to go down to the corner and have our lunch at the Collegeville drug store owned by Mr. and Mrs. Lutz. And they hated students to come in there and make a mess. And every day we had lunch down there and had long conversations about what was happening in the world and what should be fixed to make it right. Students have a right to think, and they express themselves at the Collegeville drug. I came to be here because of the close proximity to my home in Pottstown. I was qualified to go to school here, but I really wanted to go to the University of Pennsylvania. But unfortunately, there was a very large contingent of returning servicemen after World War II, and the enrollment at the University of Pennsylvania was bloated with returning soldiers, servicemen, and I was not able to get in at that time. I was able to get in and was accepted here, and it turned out to be a good choice in the long run. I took business courses here as a curriculum, but I was also interested in liberal arts, and my friend Orby Swavely and I enjoyed a number of governmental and political poli-sci, political science classes here. Met a lot of interesting people here. As I said to you earlier, he wanted to become a doctor and found out he didn't have what it takes, so he became a business major also. And oddly enough, we graduated at the same time after we had struggled and drove back and forth from Pottstown to Collegeville so many days together. The president of Ursinus College belonged to the same fraternity that I belonged to. We were in the same class. His name was Richard Richter, and he became president about 10 years, maybe 12 years after we graduated, which would put him around 1960 when they needed a new president, and Richard qualified, and he served as president for probably 20 years and saw a lot of the changes that were taking place. The donations, the alumni support of this college was tremendous, and I have seen a huge transformation of buildings on campus here.
You are an accomplished artist. Did you start your art education over here?
No, I didn't.
Did you have any idea?
I had no artistic inclinations. My sister, 2 years older than myself, was a graduate of the Philadelphia College of Art. She wanted to make her career in art, especially fashion, women's fashions, and she found out that she wasn't able to make the grade in women's fashions, plus the fact she didn't want to live in New York City. So she married and started a family instead. My uncle, my mother's brother, was a professional artist, and his wife was a professional artist. She eventually became the art director of the children's magazine Jack and Jill, which was nationally famous.
And that's the Geisels.
That's correct. My uncle's name was John Geisel, and his wife was Peggy Geisel, art editor of the Jack and Jill children's magazine for many years. And the reason for that was because Curtis Publishing in Philadelphia was publishing that magazine. I knew, watching what my sister went through as a student at Philadelphia College of Art, I could do what she was doing. I felt very confident, but I never had any ambitions. I went here to take business courses so that I could assume my responsibilities in my father's business.
Is that what you wanted to do?
Well, I accepted that responsibility, and that's what my father wanted me to do. In fact, he wanted me to go to MIT to become an engineer. And I saw the business side as being more important than the technical side. And being able to be accepted and go here was to satisfy the educational requirements. Okay. The idea of being an engineer graduating from MIT was too lofty for my ambitions. And of course my father died in my freshman year here. In fact, my mother said, I will help you. I will read, because history is one of the major subjects for a liberal arts education. And my mother found out in the first week she was a century behind. We moved so rapidly, which is a part of the struggle of keeping up with so many new things and back and forth and job and everything. I was really up to my ears in so many commitments to get the job done.
So your mom was trying to help you with the homework?
She did. She thought, and that was my family, because as I told you, my sister had married and moved to Florida.
And your father had died,
so it was just the two of us. And this was something my grandfather wanted me to go to work in the company, Standard Press Steel, that he had worked for 47 years. And this was his way of giving me stability in life. And I did work the summer of 1950 at Standard Press Steel, and my mother said, I want you to finish your college education.
So he was trying to give you a job?
He was trying to give me stability.
If you
He gave me the job. There was no problem with that. And he thought I should go to night school. My mother said, I want you to finish your education here.
So
I did. And that was a parting of the ways between my grandfather and myself, because he worked for that company for 47 years, and I was only there one summer, and I'm back here. He didn't ever have a college education. He worked as a carpenter all his life.
So he was giving you an opportunity, he felt.
He did. He felt that this was the way for me to go. Even though 3 of his brothers were professional. One was a lawyer, one was an eye surgeon, and the other was one of the top engineers for AT&T.
So you felt that by leaving, dropping out of school and working at the steel place, that it would have been, you would not have been a professional.
I didn't think it was going to work, and my mother said, I don't think so either. I want you to finish your college education here.
Yeah, and he
so
was
I came back.
Insulted, you mean?
What?
He was insulted that you didn't take his...
Disappointed is the word.
Yeah.
And I said a parting of the ways.
Because
my father was their only son, gone. Okay? My mother was a cripple, and she's confined here. And here's my grandson, who doesn't want to work in a company that I've been working for 47 years. He wants to do something else. He was disappointed in me because his idea was not finished. My tour of duty with the government in the Army.
Where did you meet the recruiting officer for the Army?
He sent me a notice, you're drafted. It's Baumberger Hall, the back of Baumberger Hall, which is the central building, one of the oldest buildings on campus here. And the sculpture is Zacharias Ursinus, the person who originated the college in the mid-1800s. And you will see the archway up here.
Is this where you walk to, the front of the building? Yes.
It's all women's residence over here. So after I graduated from the evening school of Philadelphia College of Art, I began getting more involved, and that led me to the advertising industry, and that led me to a whole other thing, and I kept working nighttime and weekends to develop my skills. And then when the newspaper business was sold, that was reason for me to leave that company, which was causing me physical upset. I itched all over. Remember that, Jeannie? I had to go over to Lankenau Hospital to try to find us. I was, and the doctor finally checked everything. He said, it's your job. It's what you're facing at your employment. And he said, you either resolve that or get another job. Main street of Pottstown, which is called High Street, but it's also Ridge Pike, which runs from Philadelphia to Reading. All the communities along the banks of the Schuylkill sit on this Ridge Pike.
And why are we going to Pottstown today?
To visit the roots of John and Jeannie Satterthwaite.
So you were born in this town?
I was born here, and Jeannie was born here. A town that we have not seen for decades, and we're noticing so many changes.
And that isn't the hospital we were born at.
No, not that one. We'll
There
see.
were two hospitals
Yeah.
at one time.
And the other place where we were born is no longer a hospital.
I think this looks kind of similar to Narvik.
Oh, it's much bigger. And more industrial. There are all these different plants here. And people came here for jobs. The row of houses here used to extend right up to this point here.
Wow.
And
The
yeah,
cars were pulling you?
this used to be my father's parking lot.
Wow.
He didn't have all of this building back here. That all came later.
Does this look the same?
No, none of it looks the same.
Not even this building?
No, I'm telling you, none of that back there existed. And this extension, see where the downspout is?
Yeah. Was
My
that
father's building was from there back.
Uh-huh.
Apparently this is empty now.
When you say your father's building, is that the business he had?
This is his shop. This was where his shop existed. Trucks and automobiles came here for his ability to fix them, for his engineering skills to be able to do
Joe Jarvis, where I used to work.
that pile of junk right over there.
Really?
You used to work there?
Yeah, this used to be a big factory.
Wow.
And that's why I came this way. I wanted you to see. That's what's left. See the railroad bridge? The entrance to the factory used to be up there right by that bridge where that car was coming by.
You want to drive up there?
Yeah.
I will. But all of this, hundreds of people used to work here.
Yeah, it looks like
This was, this area over here where this wire mesh is, was in a lower, there were presses in there. And when I was going to Ursinus, I told you I had to work part-time, and I worked here. The
you
idea,
worked there too?
Sure.
Mom?
Uh,
Both worked there? Which one?
Well, she worked in the accounting department. I worked in the, her father was in the inspection department, and I worked in the press room. In that case, these were presses that press metal into shapes. Yeah, so my father's building used to have an entrance right where this is here. It used to have a big door, side door, and the building didn't go back as far as this did. I gotta move.
Well, that was close to be near your
Yeah,
dad's
this is
house.
the main entrance right there for Dover Jarvis
South
Street.
Street.
And your grandmother lived on South Street.
Oh.
I don't know what house.
What's the house? Did you have a house near your dad's shop?
No, we didn't live here.
Oh.
My grandmother lived down at the end of this street.
Look at these old
This
houses.
looks like north side of Narberth.
That looks like her.
These people came and they were working
Yeah,
people.
that looks like her neighbor.
Okay, this is Franklin Street. Used to
Did we
come
pass
down.
it, Mom?
Yeah, we passed. And we used to come down that hill up over the bridge to go to her house.
Who's that? Your mom's mom?
It's my father's mother.
Center.
So this is like the main drag in Pottstown.
It is, certainly is. Still, Cole's Tobacco is still there. The guy that owned that used to live out where my family lived on North Evans. And this is the main crossroads.
Yeah, that used
Yeah.
to be a bank, and the railroad used to be down there.
It is still down there,
Okay.
but the railroad isn't used anymore.
Oh, we don't.
And as we go up here, I'll point out the church that your mother and I were married in. The Pottstown Mercury is the newspaper, daily newspaper, printed in that building. Still in business. I used to go to Sunday school at this church when I was very small. During the Depression, I was 4, 5, 6 years old. My parents sent me to Sunday school, and that was the connection. Now, on the
That's
left
church I
here,
used to go to, that church.
yeah, I'm just going to pull in here. This is the church that Jeannie's family belonged to. It's a Lutheran church. It's no longer in service. They merged with
Emmanuel.
Emmanuel.
It was a bigger Lutheran church.
Yeah, they can't afford to maintain two churches, so they merged. And we were married in that church.
Wow.
And Uncle Bill and Aunt Peg Lamb performed the music. I don't think that building exists anymore.
Your high school?
Where she went to school,
Oh.
yes.
We'll go back.
It's not there anymore?
I don't think
Let's go
so.
back over there when
My
we have a
God.
minute.
Here's the fire company a block
We're
away
in the
from
block where Jeannie and her family
This is the
used to
block
live.
where I live now.
And you probably want to take a picture.
Does it seem smaller, Mom?
That's our house on the corner. And my mother's mother had
Yeah.
that house built, Shaner's house
You
built,
notice
and Culler's
the
house built.
unique architecture there, where the corner of the building is around it, like that. It's like a separate room out there. When I left my job in Easton, Pennsylvania, and came back here, I, on the third floor, used that as my office. When I was in the insurance business, which
We used
didn't
to
last
live
too
on the
long.
third
But yeah,
floor.
Marianne and Jeannie and I used to occupy the third floor on that. This area down here was an enclosure that Jeannie's parents put on there for their antique business.
When I was young, the whole house, when I was little. And my mother lived in there before that. Her mother lived there. They had 7 bedrooms in that house. And two big living rooms. Anyway, when my father changed the house, he made 5 apartments out of it. Because, you know, my mother had passed away and we didn't need all that room. So he put 4 new kitchens in and 2 new bedrooms.
And did the Pottstown band used to practice there?
Yeah, on the first floor. The floor was like, not marble, but I don't know what it was.
How long did you live here? Till you got
Till I
married?
was
first 28 years of your life.
Yeah, right.
Did you live here after you got married?
Yes.
No.
No.
After
Yeah.
we got married, we did live here. Yes, on the third
For
floor.
a little while on the third floor, yeah.
About a year and a half.
And there were 2 yards back there, 2 big yards I had to play in. But anyway, you can see how big the house was.
So what do you remember the most about growing up here in the house?
Yeah, the high school was just a block up there.
2 blocks. 1 block this way and 1 block that. It's a Victorian style architecture.
Very pretty.
And you notice
Oh,
how big
it's
those
horrible.
windows are. They're 12-foot ceilings. Most houses only have 8-foot ceilings, but that has
When
12-foot
people
ceilings.
walked by there on the street, they couldn't see in our windows. The windows were high. Anyway, this frame part that's on the front here used to be a porch, and Pop made that into the
How
kitchen.
long did your parents own this place?
Oh, I don't know. Anyway, my mother's mother lived there, and while she lived there, she built the house next door, and she built the house next door to that, Cheners, and she built the house across the street. It was Colors.
She built it because she owned the land?
They had them
She
built.
had
yeah.
the money.
Yeah, she had the money to have
She
them
had
built
somebody
them.
do the
They
building.
sold them later, yeah.
She was a
That
business.
stone house there is Shaners. They built that one, and they built the one across the street, and they built these 2. No, I guess they didn't build this one.
You
This one
notice
was
the
here.
color of the brick. That indicates how old that is. Look at the brick over here. It's not
Look at
nearly
the brick
that
on the
color.
back building. The back of the building is new brick.
This is a street called
Now,
Charlotte
I'll
Street.
show 'em the yard. Here's the yard.
Oh, I remember that fire escape.
Yeah.
This was Elvis's drugstore. We used to come up here for everything we needed for drugs.
The Farafox closed up, boarded up. You see that building with the white trim over there? That used to be a restaurant. Cloverleaf Dairy had a restaurant that they ran. Remember Mrs. Feather?
Yeah.
Ah. Yes,
Oh,
things have
this
changed.
place looks terrible. I can't
Well,
believe
you know, Pottstown has lost all of its manufacturing and its tax base. And Pottstown is nearly broke financially. They're really in bad trouble. This is 814 North Evans Street in Pottstown, where I spent the first 25 years of my life. Our family was the first family to live in this house, which was brand new in 1928. I was born in 1930, just a few blocks down the street in the Pottstown Hospital. And this was my first home until 1955, when I went into the service. And after the service, I lived somewhere else. My mother lived here until 1964, when she was moved to a much smaller residence apartment closer in town where her friends could come and visit her. At the time that I lived here, I knew everybody in this block, and almost every house had children my age. This was really a family street. And I can still remember who lived in one house. Yes, that's 819. This is 814. So this is a small residential area of a manufacturing town which had many large corporations offering jobs in the manufacturing industry. Almost all of that, 99% of it, is now gone from Pottstown. And this has caused Pottstown to become a poor town for the time being. Nice place to live, but not many jobs left here anymore. And this is a quiet street off the main street. close enough to walk to high school, close enough to walk to many other activities.
Is it any different now, the house? Do you remember?
Yes, there are a number of changes. I see that there's a dormer on the third floor roof, which didn't exist when I was here. This has a fence, backyard, which we didn't have. This has different steps. You'll see the number 814 on the post by the front door. And the steps were something that I built for my mother, and I brought the electricity out here. We didn't have that particular light, but that was so that at nighttime the light could eliminate people coming and going from the house. I have not known who owns the house since 1964. The bay window on the side is still the same, but there's different shrubbery along here. I told you before my father got expelled for misbehavior, and I have to tell you, the neighbor that lived in this house annoyed him. So Halloween time, since we are almost up to Halloween, he figured out that if you put a needle through a suction cup and attached a long thread to the eye of the needle, you could then hide and pull that thread, and it would be tick, 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 tick against the glass window. And that so annoyed this neighbor over here. My father was having a wonderful time. He was underneath the bay window here, pulling this thread back and forth. So she threw up the window and said, "I know you're out there! Stop it!" And then the telephone rang. The telephone was right in the bay window there. So my father had to give up his hiding place and come in the house. And that neighbor never spoke to us after that.
Oh.
I see railings which are quite different on the front of the house. That railing, the wood railing, is the same as what we had. And remember the porch furniture that we used to have in Norbert?
Yeah.
That was
Oh, it came
first
from here?
came from here.
Oh.
Yes. My father took that in trade back during the Depression days. And I see that they have an air conditioner unit here. In fact, the whole planting along there is really very nice. And beneath the railing, there's a coal window to the cellar. And the coal truck used to back up here and have a chute. That
All the way to there?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Come on. That wasn't any big deal. Tobacco company. And if you will look at the corner house that is stone, the owner of Coal Tobacco built that house and used to live there. I'm sure he's dead by this time. He was our neighbor. This used to be the end of town, the next block. There were no houses beyond that point. It was all farmland. And now as we're going out this street, you'll see how far it's expanded. Really changed a lot. We did not have any garage, and our car always sat out front here. Other people had a garage, but we didn't have a garage. In fact,
I don't see anybody on the street with a garage. In
Well,
the back of the house?
yeah, next door they have a garage.
In the back, you mean?
Yes.
Off like a road back there?
There is an alleyway.
Oh.
Yes.
Was this tree there? Or some of these trees?
Yes. My parents planted this tree. Maple. In fact, if I ever got one of those pictures out with my father standing out here, you would see this maple tree. Yeah, that maple tree is, it must be 70 years old. At least. I don't remember the second tree so well as this tree. And I used to, this is where I got my experience of taking care of a
Here,
puppy.
shake its hand.
You can, if you want. I'm sure they wouldn't mind.
No, I meant for you.
Oh, no.
Say hello.
Hello, hello. porch over here, and you can see 814 on the side of the coast.
Yes.
And when I was a little boy, 5, 6, 7 years old, I used to get on my knees and look out that bedroom window and look at the rest of the world out here and wonder what all was out there.
Do you remember that?
I do. Yes. It's right inside that big bay window and off the porch there. We used to have a piano, an upright piano. My mother saved that from her earlier days. And when we brought a cat home from the garage where my father worked, it was just a kitten, but we made a home for this cat, and the cat used to like to get up on the keys and walk across the keys, making music. That cat was Skippy. It was a gray tiger cat. She lived for 13 years, and she died underneath the bay window over there one day. That was a very sad day for us.
How old were you?
Oh, I guess I must have been about 16,
Wow.
17, I don't know exactly.
So she must have been there throughout your life, as far as you could remember.
She came to us when I was very young,
Right.
yes. And I think she was 13 years old, so if I was 4 and she lived 13, I'd be 17 at the time. So, but I still remember people that lived in the corner, both of these houses, right up the street. I think there was probably 50 boys and girls that lived in this block.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, there were. And these houses were new in the late 20s. And as I said to Arun, the next block, you see those houses in the distance, they didn't exist. That's where the end of town is, the whole farm out there. If you look through here, you see a cream-colored house. There's a whole one-block row of houses that were all built alike. And Doler Jarvis Corporation had those houses built, and people that came to work for Doler Jarvis Corporation could own those or rent those houses. It was like a company place. And I still remember the high school teacher that lived over there. That was his garage back there.
So how does it feel to come back here?
Old. I look at this tree behind you, which is a maple tree, which is probably 70, 75 years old. I was quite young when this was planted here. Somewhere we have a picture of my father standing beside this tree. I would have to kind of remember what the circumstances were for taking that picture, but it was a single trunk at that time. It has survived as many years as I have, and it's amazing. It's probably the oldest tree in this block, so I don't remember any of the other trees. None of these bushes existed. Here's the junior high school. It's called Pottstown Middle School.
Did you guys go there at the same time?
Yes?
Do you know each other at that time?
No?
We are at my grandmother's house, my father's mother's apartment.
She used to have apartment 72. These were new apartments in those days, brand new. And Harry Burden was able to make the arrangements for Mother to move here. And
C-72. Here it is.
How long did she live here?
64 to 81. They took the ramp away, built a ramp for her to, as she, being in a wheelchair, she'd come out in the parking lot, and then she used to go up the sidewalk around the corner to the grocery store, Rosenberry's grocery store.
In her wheelchair by herself.
In a wheelchair.
Carry the groceries back on her
No,
lap.
No,
they
somebody
sent somebody back with
Oh,
her.
did they?
Yes. An errand boy. She'd make a purchase, and then he would take a shopping cart and push the cart behind her.
Oh, that's nice.
What was this factory here? What did they make? Scarves or sweaters? Something like this. Fabric mill. This has changed where Orby used to live.
This isn't my end of town.
That's the house that Orby used to live in. Look at that, all that big lot. And the dealership is closed up and gone. It used to be Krause and Ludwig's. This is the big Catholic church. Oh, look at that thing. We used to have a number of friends that lived around here.
Gene Truman used to live in
Yeah.
there.
Look at the name there. Invictus Ministries. They're the ones that operate this church now. Since it's no longer a
I
Lutheran
never
church.
heard of that.
I never did either. Might not be available to direct you to this location for your mother. Your mother decided some years ago that she didn't want to be buried with me. She wanted to be buried with her twin brother there.
My father, in the Depression days, bought my tombstone. And
She
has
wants
it in there.
your mother wants
What
to
do you
be
mean, has it in
cremated.
It's
And-
there with,
You have a tombstone there?
yeah, next to my twin brothers.
You're not dead yet.
Well, he bought the stone during the Depression for both. But they thought I was going to die too.
So if we go there now, it's already paid for?
Yes.
There, yeah.
It's not there physically.
Yeah, it is.
Is there?
There's a tombstone with your name on it in the graveyard.
No dates on it, but
I think the flag is for your grandfather. Your grandmother, and that's Jeannie's brother.
Yes.
He served in the Navy. Well, Pop served in the First World War, so the flag could have been.
That's why it
but
says
it's her
senior.
brother's
This
flag.
is my grandfather,
Grandfather.
born on April
Grandmother
1st.
died just after you were born. You were born in '64. She died in '66.
Yeah, she was a Gemini, huh?
And that's your mom's twin brother.
Yes, right? Died the next day. That's
Now,
right.
Your mother.
The history of Satterthwaite family.
Is briefly remembered by a survivor. Here it is, 2011, and more than 2 centuries ago, the first Satterthwaite was on his way from merry old England and religious persecution to come to America, the New World, and he was able to get a property in Bucks County in Falls Township, where he married Pleasant Mead and subsequently had 13 children to propagate the Satterthwaite family. The Quaker Meeting House is still standing in Falls Township, close to where their farm was. And for the next 150 years after they established their family in Falls Township. The next 150 years, Satterthwaites lived in Bucks County. Eventually, some of my ancestors moved to Hatboro, Horsham, and Doylestown. Doylestown is the Bucks County seat. Hatboro and Horsham are just over the county line into Montgomery County. My grandfather, E. Burton Satterthwaite, had 3 brothers. John, who turned out to, these are all older brothers. My grandfather was the youngest of 4. The oldest was John Satterthwaite, who eventually became a surgeon for Wills Eye Hospital in Philadelphia. The next in line was William Satterthwaite. He became a prominent lawyer, and his son became judge of Orphans Court in Bucks County. Third brother was Paul. Paul became an engineer with a famous engineering telephone company called AT&T, and he was headquartered in New York City. Had an excellent job. Okay, my grandfather married the girl next door, Elizabeth, and they together in 1898 had 1 son, who was Charles Walter Satterthwaite. Charles Walter was my father, and my father and my mother only had 1 daughter and 1 son. The daughter was born in 1928, July the 19th, and there was a good deal of concern about this baby's name. Sarah Ann was one of the proposed names, but there was maybe even an argument, certainly a lot of discussion, and my mother finally decided on the name of Sabra, or as the Jewish pronounce it, Sabra. My mother did not know of the Jewish derivation of that name, and she never gave my sister a middle name, just Sabra Satterthwaite. And by the time we were in private school preparing for college, she became known as Sabe the Babe. I was 2 years younger, and growing up, my 2 years senior sister was bigger, taller, and heavier. And yes, she bullied me a lot. However, when I matured, I was able to be taller and look right over her head and weighed a lot more than she did. But I didn't bully her. I let her go her way. She had 3 sons with her husband. My wife and I, Virginia, known as Jeannie, had 2 girls. 3 boys, 2 girls. Very interesting how the family developed. I was born in 1930 in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. My wife Jeannie was born 1929 in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. And we just happened to see Pottstown Hospital as it is today as a nursing home for senior citizens. And today's date is October the 22nd, 2011. We have had a very interesting tour looking at family homestead, both Virginia's homestead and my homestead, and burial plot in Pottstown. At the request and the pleasure of Mandy and Arun, which we have treasured this day of family togetherness with.